In this tutorial, we're going to go over how you can set up grabbable objects off of your avatars. Now, this tutorial has a lot of similarities to components in the extending avatars tutorial, so I would suggest you watch that one first. So we're going to go through this assuming that you have watched that. Now, there is an example grippable in the example avatar folder, the content avatars, the mannequin. It's called BP example avatar grippable. Now you can have a look through this as well to get an idea for your own one, or you can copy this off and work from that. But for this tutorial, we're going to be making one from scratch. So what we're going to do first is we're going to want to create our own actor class. So we can go right click, blueprint class. But instead of just picking actor here, we want to click this drop down into all classes, and we want to search for a grippable. There's a few of them here. You can use grippable static mesh, skeletal mesh, or just plain actor. As example, I'm going to use a grippable static mesh actor. Open that up. I'm just going to throw a test mesh on this skeleton, on the static mesh component. Now, the important details under this actor's class defaults is you're going to want to set this to not replicate, so untick replicates. The reason for this is that these grippables do not replicate in the standard sense. If you were to use this replication here, that would mean that the actor would need to be spawned on server. But due to the moddability of the game, the server usually doesn't have your content or needs to care about it. So your content would not spawn if you had that ticked. The other things we're going to want to change is under the VR grip interface settings here. We're going to want to change the movement replication type to client-side authoritative no rep. This will make the server not force drop it from our hands, because that will count as a local grip only. The slot default and grip types, you can have these with physics interactions as well, so the thing you're holding can hit other surfaces and players in the map. You could also use an IK just in your animation graph to IK your hand targets or your hand bones to different sockets on the gun or whatever it is you're making. So for example, for this, you could IK your right hand or left hand to the grip here, same to the front grip. But for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to change these down to custom grip, just so we can handle the attachment on our own. Control and save. Now in our event graph, the important things we're going to want to add in are the interfaces, your grip interface, and we're going to want to implement on grip and on grip release. We're also going to need to make this actor use the reg system. So add a component, type in regh, make it a reg actor, and give it and generate it a unique ID under the component properties. Now off of our big in play, we're going to want to enable our player input, so we can locally have input events. And we're also going to get our parent character. Now we can store this. Call owning player. Now on our reg component, we're going to want to implement the on component initialized. And on this, I am going to bind a function, bind a reliable function by name. I'll call this grip event. Add a custom function off its link on grip event. Now the way I'm going to be working with this is I'm going to send an array of strings up whenever we grip or release or use the item. So off of this data here, I just type a get a copy of 2 of those. So in index 0, I'm going to say this is the hand that wants to grip it, so the string will either be left or right. On index 1, I'm going to have either a grip or a drop event. Now this is the function that's going to occur when we do the replicator call for telling other people that we have gripped or dropped an object. So from this, I'll actually collapse this to a function. Just add our input array here. We'll handle net grip. And since this is going to be responding from the network, we don't need to call this locally, because we already grip it locally and respond to these events. So we can do a get our owning player here and check if it is locally controlled. This locally controlled means that we are the one who's currently using this pawn. So it'll be false if it's any other networked player. Just going to collapse that to a macro. Drag off our true and false pins. So we want to perform this handle network grip if we are not locally controlled. Now with our grip or drop event here, I'm just going to check equals string. Is this equal to grip? So if we're equal to grip, then we want to handle the gripping through true, and false, we want to drop it. And with this other bin here at index 0, we're going to want to get the hand that we want to grip it with. So we can check, is this equal to left hand? Now the way to manually call grip events through this is to right click. You'll probably have to disable context sensitivity, type in grip actor, and it's the function that uses the grip motion controller component. Now the actor to grip is going to be ourself. With the target, I'm just going to drag off this type select, and we're going to select which motion controller from the owning pawn that we're going to want to grip it with. So if it's equal to left, I'll grab our owning player here, get the left motion controller, and I'll get the right motion controller. So equal to left, true, then we use the left hand. If it's not, we use the right hand. World offset, I'll just set this as a 0 transform. And connect that up. These, I'll make them match our class defaults. So custom grip, client side, no rep. And off of our false here for the grip event, I want to implement the drop. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I want to drop actor onto context sensitive. False. And I can use the same select node here. The target. And again, we will be ourself that will be dropping. This simulate means, do we want to simulate physics when drops? I'm just going to leave this as false because I want to handle attachment back onto the character. Now I'm going to make another function called handle player attachment. So this is the function where I want to actually attach or detach the actor to our character. And I'll add in a boolean here as its input, say call attach. So if we want to attach, we'll add the node attach actor to component. Now the component we're going to want to get is the skeletal mesh of our character here. So we can type in get character mesh. be the parent component, and what we're attaching is ourself. So the socket name is the socket or the bone on the character that we want to attach to. So for the sake of this, we'll just pick a bone from our skeleton. And I want to attach the object to the player's hand. So copy the bone name here, paste it into the attachment socket, and I'll just add some local offset. So add local offset, just 5 along the Y, just to move it away from my hand a bit. You can also create a socket in your skeleton hierarchy here to attach it to. Like I could use the hand socket here, either one of these. And if we don't want to attach it here, I will then attach it back to our character's calf. So grab the right calf, copy bone name, paste the bone name, add an offset bit. I'll just save that. The hand and network grip event, I will add in the player attachment. So on grip, I want to attach it, tick the box. On drop, and detach. I'll compile and save that. Now back in our primary event graph, we want to implement our onGrip and grip release events. So these will fire locally and on the network when we manually call this grip and drop. But on our end, these will fire automatically once we grip the object or drop the object, so we don't need to rerun these again. Hence this locally controlled check here. So we will do another locally controlled check here when we grip it. It's locally controlled. And we want to use the true this time, since we're the one who's going to be grabbing it. And with this, I want to call our network event through the reach component. So call reliable event by name. I'll make an array here. So index 0 is going to be the hand that we're gripping it with. Index 1 is the grip or the drop event. So on the grip, index 1, I'll just type in grip. For index 0, we want to get the controller that's actually grabbing this, so we can drag off our gripping controller here, and a quick way to find out which hand's gripping it is to just check the motion source. So just type in motion source, get motion source, and this will either be left or right. And since we're handling the custom grip here, we want to also do our attachment event, and we will attach it locally as well. Now we can also just basically copy paste this down to our grip release. And change the grip here, the index 1 to drop. And on our handle attached, we just untick attach. Now that should be it for the basic grabbing and dropping through the network as well. So we want to do the same thing as in the last tutorial, where we add it as a child actor to our character. So open up your character blueprint, select your mesh, add a child actor component in. And set its class to our grippable object we have. And just for the initial offset, I will just position this somewhere where we can grab it easily. You could also have this attached to the back, so you could have the parent socket be no spine. Come on, let's save that. And since we modified our main blueprint again, we need to drag and drop our character into the avatar setup window, and it'll populate our changes. And we can test it in the editor. Now you'll probably notice that you won't be able to grip this at the moment. That's because you need to change the collision channel of our grippable. So if we select our static mesh component in our grippable actor here, under collision preset, change this to custom, and change the object type to world dynamic. And there we go. It's funky, just because we're not handling any rotations or anything when we're grabbing it. One other reason you may not be able to grab it is you may not have collision assigned for it. So open up your static mesh that you've assigned and check the simple collision bounds. In this case, this does have simple collision. If you want to add collision, you can either use the convex deconvolution here, or just add in simple box and sphere capsules. Now that is the basic grippable. So if you want to customize how you grab it, using what button, or does it stay attached to your hand while you hold the controller down, then drop on your release? If you go back under your grippables class defaults, under gameplay tags, you can add tags here for how it's dropped. So I want to drop it on the side grip release. So this will be your side grip of your controller. And I want to grab it on side grip. Now when using desktop, these default to mouse click buttons. But if you were in VR, they would default to the controller button that you have assigned here. There is also the use type. So either on grip or on trigger. So I'll set mine to on trigger. I'll save that again and run. So now when we click the left mouse button, it doesn't drop when we release it. So we can keep it there until we press G, and then I'll drop it on desktop. Now if you want to handle use events, there is a default use method, as you saw here with the gameplay tags. So we will implement that event under our event graph interfaces via grip interface, and on used, implement event, and I'll just make this fire off a simple first person projectile like with this example gun here. Small transform. I will use our root component, and I want to get the forward vector, or I can spawn out from the barrel here. So I'll just add a scene component here. You could also use a socket that you've placed on your mesh up the front for where to spawn it. So I'll get our world location of our little scene component here. Like that spawn location. Rotation, we can just pass in our same world rotation here. And I would just set this component's projectile component, its initial velocity. And local space, just add in 3000 on our forward vector, or our X vector. That's the direction that we assigned along forward. Now I will just collapse this to a function again. Just call it spawn projectile. Now instead, since we're calling this over the network, I can just disconnect this, and I want to call the event instead through our replication factor. So call event by name. I won't use a reliable event for this, it doesn't need to be. I'll call it just fire. Take our spawn projectile event here, and I will add in another bind event. I'll use a non-reliable event for this. And spawn our projectile from the networked fire event. So when we use it locally, or we click a mouse button or a trigger, or whatever you have assigned, whatever gameplay tag you have assigned to trigger the on-use event, it will then call our networked fire event, which will then perform the spawning of the projectile on everyone who has this content loaded. Test it in here, and we are firing balls up into the air. So we can test this locally with a network mode, set the number of players, net mode to listen server under the play dropdown. And now I forgot to add in our events that we need to call for our grip events here. So let's grab the grip event and paste it into the onGrip reliable event we want to call for each one. Now we can see on our server, our client has picked up our grabbable here. And our other client here is firing off a little projectile. And there you have it. That's how to set up a grabbable actor off your characters and for it to be network replicated.